Most of my life has been spent in show business, either as an actor or as a producer. However, as a producer, I've spent my entire career right here at Paramount. I don't know, I think we've made more movie magic here in the past 10 years than I ever thought could be done.
Now, that brings me to Marathon Man and why I wanted to make Marathon Man. When Sidney Beckerman, my co-producer, presented me the book, I read it and thought it was a marvelous book, a very exciting story. That wasn't enough, however. I wanted more.
I wanted to make a great action suspense story and marry it to the artistry of unique talents. When we got John Schlesinger, whom I think is amongst the great directors in the world today, Laurence Olivier, one of the most accomplished international actors ever to appear on stage and screen, dynamic, young, and incredibly versatile Dustin Hoffman, Roy Scheider, the think man superstar and action film veteran, Bill Devane from off-Broadway and on Broadway, and the beautiful European newcomer, Mort Keller.
Where are we going? Oh, it's private.
When we got this incredible international cast with all its obvious difference in acting styles and melded their considerable talents to this unique audience material of Marathon Man, well, I think this is a prime example of the way highly styled entertainment should be. I think the film industry is the one place where it's done so well.
I would like to have them take 2 steps back.
Two steps back.
And come into that, you know what I mean?
So we should start further back.
Well, at least that's what John Schlesinger and Sidney Beckerman and myself are trying to do. And I think we have a good shot at succeeding.
What interested me about making a thriller, I love them. I'd never made one, so I wanted to try my hand at it. And I wanted to see, as well as doing something that was truly suspenseful, whether I could get my own kind of interest, which is largely concerned with character and with detail, into a film of this nature. I mean, obviously, a thriller is first and foremost perhaps concerned with plot, which was one of the problems that I found perhaps in making it something that was personal to me. It's a film that's largely about fear, and it's about pain and the infliction of pain because of fear.
Somebody help me!
When Sidney Beckerman, my co-producer, and Bill Goldman, who's the author of Marathon Man, and myself sat down, we said, who would we like most to be in the picture if we had our first choices, which, may I tell you, you very rarely get. We said we'd like John Schlesinger to direct it, we'd like Dustin Hoffman to play the Marathon Man, and we'd like Laurence Olivier to play Zell. And we all laughed and said, well, it's pipe dreams, it'll never happen. It happened. And you know, it's the first time in the last 10 years that I can remember that the first choice for each major part we got on our first reading. And it must have been the property.
Come on.
We wanted them, we got them, and the result, I think, is going to be sort of exciting to watch.
It's okay. Take your time.
The set you see them on is a Hollywood recreation of the New York City waterworks. It occupied 2 entire sound stages in the Paramount lot. It's a towering edifice of steel, meshing, anchored in the foundation of water, and took more than 6 months to construct. I don't want to tell you what it cost, because it was too expensive. It was affectionately known among the crew as the Waterworks. It is here that Hoffman and Olivier play out their final scene.
That is, of course, the ultimate theft.
That's close enough. That's close enough.
Laurence Olivier is an actor who relies completely on text, on the written word as it appears in the script. And it was fascinating to watch his formal interpretation of the role.
One becomes hysterical. Might be more conversation, no?
I don't think.
So I hear
Need that for the putting down.
somehow I don't hear it coming off of what we're talking about. Just the word, then there is a sense.
You understand? I've got to bring it back to that.
Oh,
So I force it back to that.
I see.
And the easier way to force it is to find an excuse for what you just accused me of, which makes you say Jesus Christ.
Right.
So I say, well, one was in a state of hysteria. And then I open it, thinking I'm now going to dazzle you beyond asking any questions. But you're not to be that kidded. So I say, well, aren't you going to take a closer look than that?
Dustin Hoffman, however, is from an entirely different school of acting. He's more of an organic actor, and he depends upon the art of improvisation as a means to arrive at his end.
I mean, what I feel emotionally is...
What, you just, I didn't know till now.
That's it.
So you said it? I shouldn't say till you said it.
No.
Believe it, you mean it's too many lines?
Yes.
I didn't know till now.
Yeah.
I feel like saying I didn't know till now.
Yeah.
Although English is not Mart Keller's native language, she learned quickly and picked up on the improvisation from Dustin.
Explain to me, my brother!
We had some hard times up at Pound Ridge where we're shooting a sequence where we had some rain and it's the climax of the film and it's a somewhat emotional scene. And we were improvising a lot of it and she just had difficulty. So it's the old story that you have as an actor that you try to learn from is that you have to work the reality. If you're having trouble shooting it, whatever that trouble is, try to find a way to admitting that into the scene. The fact that she can't think in English, find a way to let that be the character having trouble, suddenly being able to think in English. And simply we tried to do that in that scene.
Laisse-moi t'expliquer, je veux te dire la vérité. Let me explain. No. Let me explain what's really... I didn't know what happened. Tell me when... Let me explain. No!
We did get to the point where we were really, tigers at the gate.
Let me explain!
Explain! Tell me when they're coming!
I didn't know what's really happening!
When do you think they're coming?
And I mean, I hate to be repetitive in that way, but we didn't speak to each other from 1 o'clock in the afternoon on, the first day and for the next 3 days. I mean, if we ever hated each other, it was then. And then we saw it on film, and it works, and it pays off, and suddenly we're friends again.
Is it safe?
You talking to me?
Is it safe?
It's what safe? Is it safe?
Laurence Olivier said that he was having breakfast with his secretary and at his home in Beverly Hills just prior to coming to shoot that sequence. And he's looking out at the garden, he's seeing this gardener cutting the roses, and he's watching. And the man is cutting these roses with such delicacy, as he related it to me, with such care, with such love, so carefully. And it suddenly occurred to him, he says, that's the way I should play that scene. He said, I, as this Nazi who knew about being a dentist, who was going to get answers out of me, should approach the scene with that tool that I use, with that kind of delicacy, with that kind of love.
Relax. Come on, open. Okay.
Well, that's a brilliant choice for an actor, because that's the correct way of working. So you do not condescend to a character. You don't think of the character as a villain. You don't think of him torturing, because he doesn't think of himself that way.
No, I should think it would. Get better care of your teeth. You have quite a cavity here.
To put them in a picture together, well, it does cause sparks. And when they ignite...
Is it safe?
They ignite. Audiences around the world became aware of Roy Scheider when he was starred in Jaws. I think Marathon Man will make him a big star. I think he's going to be the Bogart of the 70s. He's uniquely built. He has a marvelous, rugged face. When we were in Paris shooting the scene with an assassin, he went through the fight scenes without a double. Did everything himself. Hurt himself pretty badly, but wanted to do it himself.
You think when you leave the bank, someone's going to rob you?
Who would do such a thing?
Obviously, you think I would.
Well, I trust you.
You never could. You only had to.
We're talking of my safety.
May I be candid?
Yes.
I couldn't give up.
I think Bill Devane most probably has as much potential of becoming a star as any young actor in the business. And Bill has a certain quality in his voice that you just listen to and you know who it is.
Incredible head of white hair. He's probably the wealthiest and most wanted Nazi left alive. And he's hiding out somewhere in Uruguay.
There's always a cry, there are no parts for women. Not true. Mart Keller, I saw, as did John Schlesinger, in a film called And Now My Love. We thought she was extraordinary. We brought her over here to test with Dustin for Marathon Man. She learned to speak English phonetically for the test. But her presence on the screen, from the first moment, we knew she was it.
Oh, you know, when I get the script, when I read the book, it was a kind of Mata Hari. So I think it's more interesting to have really relationship between persons. And I think Dustin Hoffman is too intelligent to have only beautiful lady. She must have something else, not only beautiful. You know what I mean? And we changed it. We write other scenes and we changed. We get another relationship. And now I like it. I like it really, Spa.
Dustin, while making The Marathon Man, lost 15 pounds. He worked out every day. He jumped rope for an hour a day. He ran 2 miles and then up to 3 miles and 4 miles a day just to get in shape for playing the part. He would never come into a scene and fake the breathing. He would run just for a take. He would run for a half a mile, so when he came into the scene, he would actually be out of breath. I said, Dustin, why do you do this? I mean, can't you just run in and do it? He says, no, Bob, you don't understand. To really be out of breath and to sound out of breath has to be real. You can't fake it. And that's how Dustin, on every nuance of this picture, played his role. This scene was the most difficult scene in the film. Just the logistics of shooting on a bridge at night in New York with the traffic and to get the reality that John Schlesinger wanted to get. It took 9 nights to shoot. I think it's the most unique chase ever on screen. Dustin Hoffman is, as I said before, an organic actor to the point of, possibly to the point of ill health and his own detriment. During a particular scene in the film, he insisted upon, when the heavies wanted to try to drown him, to stay underwater as long as possible to make it real. And we had several takes of it, and he insisted by keeping him down longer and longer in the water. By the end of the day, we had to give him oxygen.
I said, don't press on my Adam's apple, but try to really hold me under. Let me see how long I can stay under. Let me see if I can really fight you. Let me see what happens.
The magic of Hollywood can create or recreate almost anything. But sometimes there's nothing like the real thing. As a matter of fact, when I discussed before our 5 international stars, I neglected one. There's a 6th, and that's the city of New York. Some of the most dramatic sequences in the film were shot right in the big city itself. As a matter of fact, I would say a major sequence in the film where Laurence Olivier was on 47th Street in the Diamond District, and although we were on location, the magic of Hollywood is with us in the form of enthusiasm. A thrilling sensation of great expectations that can only be found in this truly international city. Nowheres were the onlookers more cooperative and eager to participate in crowd scenes. As a filmmaker, I think New York is just incredible.
Watch out!
I like New York. I live in New York. I like to work in New York. I don't find New York people cold. I don't find them tough. I don't even find them hostile. I find them real. I worked in other towns where you get a smile and you turn your back and you hear something else. New York is a place where you get it in front. It's an aggressive behavior, but you know what you're dealing with up front.
Sidney Beckerman and Robert Evans bought it and wanted me to do the screenplay, which I did. And Evans at that time was a famous studio head because he had been a model. It was like you gave a guy you saw on the street the head of Paramount Studios. It was nuts. It was ridiculous to give someone with that background, and he was wonderful at it. And he had a huge success.
When I was making Jaws, I had a couple of days off, and one of the producers, David Brown, gave me the galleys of the novel. And he said, I've just finished reading this. I'd like to see if you like it. So I started reading it about 10 o'clock at night, and I finished about 4 o'clock in the morning. And when I came down to breakfast the next day, he said, what did you think? I said, oh, it's terrific. It's a great page turner. It's going to make an awful good movie. And I said, but, the guy who really fascinated me dies in the middle of the book. And 2 years later, I was playing the part.
My memory is that John Schlesinger was the one who contacted me about it, and he told me he was doing this film called Marathon Man, and had I read the book, and I said I had not. So, I was interested in working with John because it had been one of the best experiences of my life, working with him on Midnight Cowboy.
I found him most curious to work with. When we rehearsed, he kept a tape recorder going all the time. And so we'd try a scene this way, we'd try it that way, and then he would take the tape recorder, come home and listen to it, and come back and say, I really like this version. Let's see if we can develop this version. I mean, that's a curious way of working, but every director I've ever worked with has had a different way of working. It doesn't really matter what your work method is, as if it's where you're trying to go, what you're trying to achieve. And that's the way he did it.
He's a very sensitive guy, and he's very intelligent, and he's so alive, and he picks up everything.
He also is a director who really loved the process, I think, more than any other aspect of it. Yes, he liked getting a good take. Yes, he likes putting together the film. Yes, he likes the film working. But he loved the process, I think.
They got Hoffman to do it, and that was a big deal. because that meant the movie would go forward.
I knew Dustin from an off-Broadway play called Sergeant Musgrave's Dance. It's written by John Arden, and we had been in rehearsal for about 2-3 weeks. We're getting close to previews, and the director suddenly decided that he didn't like Dustin's North Country accent, and he fired him.
As long as they fire you before 5 days, they don't have to pay you for the run of the play. So actors always say, I got to get past the 5th day, and I didn't.
Now, I found out years later that at that time he was rooming with Gene Hackman. And Gene Hackman told me that Dustin was really distraught. He was really upset about, he really wanted to play that part. And of course, he went on to a couple of other shows, and the way things worked out, he was seen in one of those shows by Mike Nichols, and that led to The Graduate, and so forth and so forth. So it had been a couple of years since I'd seen Dustin when I met him on Marathon Man, but we had old memories.
It was an ironic experience and a good experience suddenly to be working with a guy that I didn't have the opportunity to a few years before.
One day a journalist asked me, what is the difference between a European movie and an American movie? And I said to him, in America you have to be in a good movie, and in Europe you have to be good in a movie. And I think I said that because of Dustin, because I saw something which happened. He watched every little thing, every actor, everything. He wanted that everything was good. So he knows that if everybody is good, it helps him too.
One of the problems that he had in the movie, rightfully so, was I think he always felt nervous about his age.
I remember joking with Schlesinger, saying, well, how old is this guy? Because I'm a little too old to, I was too old to do The Graduate when I did it.
Hoffman was probably 40 or pushing 40, even though because he's so youthful and energetic, he comes way younger.
I was close to 40. And I thought, well, if you think I can get away with still being in college, I would love to have one more shot at convincing the public that that they would still buy me going to college.
Well, Dustin still looks very young. I mean, Dustin was really much too old for the part in age, but not in spirit and what he could convey. He's such a great actor. He could have played 10 years old, maybe. I don't know. Listen, he played a woman after that. What can I tell you?
There was a story floating around that I told Olivier, because he wasn't working that day, that when we were in New York, and when we got back to Los Angeles, he said, how did your week go, dear boy? And I told him we did this scene where the character I was playing was supposed to be up for 3 days. He said, so what'd you do? I said, well, I stayed up for 3 days and 3 nights. And the famous line was, why don't you just try acting? And it became kind of legend. It's been quoted so many times, at least in the acting circles. And the truth is, I was the first one to quote that line, and I think it was a Time magazine interview. And of course, what they do many times in those interviews is that they leave out the reality and just put in what feels more provocative or a better story. And what accompanied him saying, why don't you just try acting? He said, and he laughed because he said, I'm one to talk. And then he was actually the first one who told me about risking his life every night, jumping, whatever it was, 20 feet in the last act of Hamlet. And the truth of it is, I didn't just stay up 3 days and 3 nights for the scene. It was a good excuse, because these were the days of Wine and Roses in Studio 54.
Doc is a fascinating guy because he chooses to work out his problems in a much different way than Dustin's character does. He was very touched and very moved by his father's death, but he abandoned all his hopes for whatever he intended to do, and he became a spy, became a killer, became a very jaded personality.
What's this? More bullshit for your thesis? There's some interviews about Dad. I'd like you to read them. Not interested.
Why not? I just want you to read it.
You're never going to face it, are you? The old man is dead. He was a drunk. He killed himself.
Yeah, Doc, but he didn't start to drink until after the hearings. It's right here in the
You've
interview.
got to be kidding.
No, look, I got it from his friends.
Where were those people when he needed them?
They were afraid like everybody else.
You think he wanted you to be throwing your life away on this shit?
But I don't think I'm throwing it away.
You are. Nothing you're going to write is going to change anything.
Why can't you give me the courtesy to read it?
It's over. Forget it.
Maybe for you.
Scheider took the part was because there's a scene from the book, about an 8 or a 10-page scene, which is his opening thing. In the movie it was there, and it was shot, in which he meets a legendary other spy, and the legendary other spy is murdered in a bathroom, and he goes nuts and destroys the two people who have done it, and it's a terrific scene for him in theory.
We had a preview of it in San Francisco, and this is 76.
And toward the end of the movie, a voice, it may have been around the dental scene, stood up and yelled sadistic shit.
Violence. I mean, violence in films then was really frowned on.
And they cut that Scheider scene because of that.
He had some scenes cut out, but it didn't matter.
I thought about him physically as being that kind of a guy who was quite secure in what he could do with his body and his hands. I had an interesting experience there because I came in the morning that we were going to do that fight, and I saw two big sort of burly guys punching each other all over the set, rolling over couches and bouncing around, and I thought, what's that? And John said, well, but we want to get as the most exciting fight we can get. And I said, yeah, John, but I don't think these guys would fight like that. They're both martial arts, the Chinese guy with the thing and me with all those martial arts training. I said, this fight is really about what they don't do. So we had a disagreement about that, and I remember calling up a couple of the producers and asking them to please come down, and I pleaded my case, and I won my point. So the other actor, who was a martial arts expert, he and I choreographed that fight. We threw the other one out. I mean, I understood that John wanted something very dynamic for his picture, but I felt we could give him something different and really exciting, but something that no one had seen before.
Listen, I was an unemployed actor for too many years, hearing the name Laurence Olivier, living with Bob Duvall and Gene Hackman. I mean, and Olivier and Gielgud were gods to us.
Olivier was the actor of the century. He's the greatest stage actor probably in the history of the stage. And even though he didn't think much of his movie career, was pretty good in the movies too, as a great, great actor and a great director. And a prize-winning figure all around the world, but he was dying.
I knew he was ill. I didn't know how ill he was, and I don't think anyone did until we started shooting. I think he had like 5 different, he had cancer, he had a leg that was blown up with gout. He had so many things that were just, invading him.
He was a soldier. I mean, I saw him with his problems with his legs sometimes, and the veins and everything, and he just was standing there doing his things.
Larry was not only frail, he was uninsurable. The only job he had had was like 2 years earlier that a 3-day part in Sherlock Holmes. You couldn't get insurance on him. And I flew over to London and met with Lloyd's of London, and I begged them to give me 6 weeks with him. And they didn't want to do it. I said, this man's the greatest actor in English cinema and English stage, and give the man back his dignity. And I convinced them to give me 6 weeks on him. That's all they thought he would live. And we got the 6 weeks, and he shot for 11 weeks. But what happened, this is the amazing thing, the adrenaline and excitement he had within, the opportunity of working again. He didn't live 6 weeks, he lived 13 more years.
Is it safe? Yes, it's safe. It's very safe. It's so safe you wouldn't believe it. Is it safe?
I remember saying to him at the very beginning, Lord Olivier, and I said, what am I going to call you? Do I call you Sir? Do I call you Lord? I don't want to call you Larry like some people do. And he says, no, it's all right. So it's quite all right, dear. He called me dear boy. It's all quite all right, dear boy. And we somehow the word lordage came out. I don't know how. And he was comfortable with that.
He enjoyed the project, and he liked his character. And he liked that Dustin and I could be rather silly about him. And we called him everything from your lordship to your Lancashire ship to your Devonshire ship we called him every ship you could possibly call an actor. And he loved it. He loved it.
So Olivier was doing this kind of big stuff. And I said something to Schlesinger, and we're all new to each other. And I said, John, it's a little big. And we all do it. The actors that come from the stage, it's like unconsciously, that's our craft. It's part of our craft as stage actors. You have to play it for the first people in the first row, and they got to hear it in the last row in the top balcony. And that's somehow what, it wasn't bad, it was just big. And I remember I said to John Schlesinger, and we had worked on Midnight Cowboy, and John said, what you want me to? You think I'm going to go up to Sir Laurence Olivier and tell him he's over the top? I am not going to do that. If you want to do it, you can do it. You know. And I said, you serious? He says, yes. And I went up to him, and I said, Lord, I said, you know, remember when we were just running the lines before we started the scene? You know, we just have line rehearsal. And he said, yes, dear boy. And I said, well, you had some really good takes, but why don't you just do one for the hell of it, where you did it just like when we were just running the lines. And he gave me this look. And he says, you think it was too big, don't you? And I said, well, who knows? I'm not, you know, I didn't say, but just, and he just looked at me like this, and he said, thank you.
John said to me one day, he said, you know, Roy, I am so delighted to have Larry on this film. It's so wonderful. He's so, I mean, you look what he's doing. I mean, can you imagine all the years, all the performances this man has, and here he is in my movie, and it's just wonderful. I just adore it. I said, John, tell him. Tell him. And he did.
Everybody did their best. Everyone was trying to do, you know, live up to playing opposite him, and they all had scenes with him too.
He was a beautiful man. He was the original Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights. He was a gorgeous man.
As he told me during the film, he looked at me one time. I'd been bicycling around the lot, and I had my shirt off, and my pants. It was a hot day, and I just came in to say hello to him, and he looked at, he saw my bare chest or something, and he said, I used to look like that. I had a body like that once. It was so sad. I used to tell him in those days I was thinking of doing Hamlet, and he would give me classes in history and Shakespeare in his dressing room during all the time that it takes to light. And he would tell me about Hamlet and other parts. And after the film was over, he wanted to give me a gift. And he said he was coming over. Was it all right? I said, sure. And there was a knock on the door, and his driver was there holding a cardboard. I'll never forget it. It's one of the great experiences in my life. He was holding a cardboard box, and it was filled with these books. And Lordage said, could I come in, dear boy? And I said, yes. And he comes in, and he gives me this gift, and he says, now, they're not very fancy. He says, but this is my favorite edition of Shakespeare. It's a Temple edition. It's very ordinary covers, but it's my favorite. And I have it still. I wouldn't mind being buried with it. But he had pages with little pieces of paper all throughout all his plays, and he had penciled in the sides comments that he had on certain speeches. I mean, he had taken, I don't know how many hours to do this. I was overwhelmed. I remember thinking, if for some reason he couldn't have been an actor, he could have been quite happy just working in a university, you know, sitting under a tree with a few students and just taught. He loved everything about what he was doing. I remember one moment during the dental scene where we kept doing this take over and over again because he was supposed to hurt me, and I scream. And we did a couple of those takes, and suddenly it occurs to me that I'm working with Olivier. My brain says, so what if I really because he was very frightened of hurting me. So after each take, he said, did I hurt you, dear boy? Did I hurt you? I said, no, I'm fine. He's so careful. He's so afraid he's going to nick me. So I said to myself, the next take, I'm going to make him think like he really got me.
Is it safe?
Look, I told you, I can't do it.
And I said, cut, and I was going. And he was sure he got me. And I said, gotcha.
I was out of the country when the movie opened, and I went to see it at a big Times Square movie theater, which we used to have. And it was a Saturday night, it was full, and I'd never seen the movie. And I thought, gee, this is not so terrible for what it was, and blah, 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 we're getting through it. And suddenly, your greatest horror, if you're the writer, the audience left the movie theater. And I looked up, and the aisles were flooded. It was so horrible. Because it wasn't, they shouldn't have left. There was some terrific stuff coming up, I hoped. And then I realized the dental scene had gotten famous even that early, and the dental scene was coming up, and they didn't want to see it. So the hundreds and hundreds of people left. The dental scene happened, and then hundreds and hundreds of people came back.
That was recut, 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 and almost taken out of the picture because of the response at first.
In the book, he kills the Olivier character, and I told John I can't do it.
The Hoffman character has become just as mean and vicious and sadistic as the Olivier character, and he shoots him in cold blood and he torments him. And I thought that was swell.
I'm Jewish, and the character is Jewish, and killing a Nazi, albeit as heinous as he was, in cold blood, something, as I think it happened in the book, something prevented me from doing it.
They brought in town to give the big operatic ending, which I never liked particularly because I hated, oh, eat the diamonds. I thought that was Hollywood horseshit. But it worked for audiences, and I'm not objecting to it.
Bob was a good friend of mine, and we didn't have the right ending for it. And Bob didn't charge anything for it. He came in as a friend.
I thought it was a stronger statement to make, not to kill him in cold blood, and that's why the whole thing was then devised of, which I think is, my opinion is that it's more interesting, is that he impales himself.
Well, for me, it was terrific. I mean, it was like my fourth movie of any, major picture, and to be working with people of that caliber was very exciting for me.
The finished product is never quite as what you wanted it to be. But you remember, when you think back on a thing that you did, whatever it was, you remember, oh man, that was wonderful working with so-and-so, or we really were cooking, whatever. You remember those things about it more than you remember, because you're not in the audience, more than you remember the thing itself.
It was wonderful. It was, for me, sometimes I get very emotional. It was a gift doing this movie for me.
Marathon Man is a very good example of a collaborative effort from everyone. I think it's one of Paramount's finest moments, and it's a film certainly one of mine.